everyone, and welcome to the first event of the UK-HRI Expert Seminar Series on methods and best practices in human-robot interaction research. I'm Claire Asher, freelance science communicator and host of the Robot Talk podcast, and I'm thrilled to be your host today for today's seminar. We'd like this to be a really welcoming and friendly environment, so please do say hello in the chat and let us know where you're watching from today. We're very lucky to be joined by Professor Tony Belpaeme from Ghent University, who's going to be talking about the role of AI in social robotics. Before we get started, I'm going to hand over briefly to Dr. Patrick Holthouse, who leads the UK-HRI topic group, to give a brief overview of what the group is all about. So over to you, Patrick.
Thank you very much, Claire, and hello and welcome, Tony, for being our first speaker in this seminar series. I'm very happy that you joined us today as well. So yeah, as Claire kindly said, we are an initiative called UK-HRI, which is a topic group funded by the UK-RAS network, where we try to develop best practices and methods in human-robot interaction research, with a heavy focus on the UK, but we're open to talk to other people from other countries and engage with you as well. We are a team of 3 investigators. That is me from the University of Hertfordshire, Daniel Hernandez from Heriot-Watt University, and Patricia Shaw from Aberystwyth University, leading this topic group. And as I said, our aims are to discuss and develop best practices in HRI research, but also one of the big points of our group is that we want to provide guidance for early career researchers and emerging researchers, and that's why we have this nice series of talks here. One of the other activities that we do is we try to map HRI activities in the UK. So we have a really nice map where you can find all the institutions where we do some research in the area. When you visit our website, you can see that and see if you can engage with us that way. If you're interested in further collaboration or want to know more about the network, please join us on Discord or on our LinkedIn page. You can find that all linked from our website. Other than this series of seminars, we also engage in other community engaging events, like we provide incentives for early career researchers to engage with a group in a more structured way, where we provide advisory. We have 21 and now another member joining soon of advisory committees, where we help researchers with a structured mentorship and then go from there and tell them how we can engage in HRI research. 3 mentorships are ongoing and a few more are coming soon. One of the other things that we do is we hand out research experience grants, where people from UK labs can visit other UK labs, early career researchers, to participate in HRI experimentation, to help produce them, to help design experiments, to help carry out experiments, also to help out evaluate experiments. And these kind of things you can apply for. Please visit our website for that. Okay, and without further ado, that's it from me. Would like to hand over to Tony to please start your talk. Thank you very much.
So thank you for having me. It's absolutely great to kind of be the first in this series. Bit of nerve-wracking as well, because I'm not entirely sure what you expect from me. So in the next 40 minutes, I'm going to kind of give you a sweeping overview of some of the research that we have been doing in our group. And I hope you can take a few things away from what we're doing and apply to your own work, and maybe find some things useful. So let's start by painting the big picture. As you all know, most robots sold now in the world are robots that perform a physical task. They weld cars, they clean your house. But increasingly, we're finding robots that need to also do a social task. A self-driving car, for example, is doing a physical task. It's taking you from A to B. But at the same time, it needs to be social. So it needs to take into account all the actions of the other road users and respond appropriately. And then on the far side of the spectrum, we've got robots that manipulate only the social world. They're not going to make you a cup of tea. They're not going to clean your house. They have been designed to only engage with you on a social level. Now, another dimension to look at this is that we have been operating robots in controlled environments and factories where everything is predictable. And recently, of course, we've become interested, or we've always been interested, but only now we've been able to deal with semi-controlled environments. So, for example, this Amazon robot is taking parcels coming down a chute and then stacking them. But of course, what we'd really like is robots that operate in highly dynamic environments, such as the home, the ultimate dynamic and unstructured environment. Now, if you look at robotics research across the world, you'll see a lot of robots trying to tackle this semi-structured or unstructured dynamical physical world, for example, through visual language action models, or work in our own group where we're trying to have a robot pour a drink. And of course, we're in Belgium, so that has to be a chocolate drink. And plenty of challenges there. So dealing with objects that deform the moment you touch them, or trying to find objects such as a glass that is transparent and thereby very difficult to actually see, and also very difficult to assess whether the glass is a very tall glass far away or very small glass nearby. And perception is a first challenge, of course, but then taking actions and then perceiving the consequences of your actions is a big challenge there. And it's not different in the social world. Yeah? These robots all operate in a physical world that involving people at all, but people are really interesting. And don't believe me. Yeah? Take it from Rodney Brooks, who was caught saying that almost anything interesting that happens with the robots involves people. And I agree, of course. Yeah? Now, as soon as we're trying to build these social robots, we can start doing wonderful things with them. And in my own research for the last 2 decades, we've worked on robots in education, robots in elder care, robots in retail applications like shops or hotels, or robots in healthcare. And here's a shameless plug for a result that was published just a few weeks ago. This is research where we worked for almost 5 years on trying to build a robot that would offer therapy to children on the autism spectrum. It was a very, very wide-ranging effort, so involving many different disciplines. And it took us many years to get the data together, but finally we published a, we think, first large-scale randomized control trial showing that robots actually do well. They're as effective as human-led therapy. Just wanted to put that out there. Now, building robots that can have a social interaction is particularly hard. And the reason why is that it is actually an amazingly complex thing that we are doing. So when we are interacting with someone else, almost all our cognitive faculties are at work and are interconnected. They're all busy, coordinated, and doing something that creates this social interaction. And so if we're trying to build a robot that does the same thing, we need to build artificial equivalents for all these elements. And that's why it's so hard. And it's not just building all the different elements, but having them all kind of sync together and coordinate at very, very fast-paced timescales. That turns out to be really difficult. So some challenges. How can a robot understand us? And of course, following that, how can we understand a robot? And then how can a robot understand the world that we live in? And then finally, if the robot actually has a view on what is going on there, what actions does it take, and how can the robot do the right thing? And I'm going to give you some examples of each of these elements. And I'll start with the robot understanding us. And as in many applications that we build, we start with automated speech recognition because spoken language is really kind of our main entry point into the social environment. Now, you might think that speech recognition is a solved problem. Yeah? If you look at the press, you're going to see that many companies advertise speech recognition as being superhuman. And indeed, on some benchmarks in some languages, indeed, speech recognition does better than your average transcriber. But we find that that really isn't the case for everyone. A few years ago, well, almost 10 years ago, we tried to build robots that would interact with children, and we kind of thought that this would be an easy thing to do. Our children spoke English. Yeah, English is kind of the best performing language in speech recognition. But when we tried it in British primary schools, we realized that actually speech recognition wasn't good at all. We didn't know how bad it was, so we set out to collect data, and we went into a school, collected speech samples from kids who were about 5 years old. We had kids count from 1 to 10. We had them speak short sentences, repeat sentences, or even use spontaneous speech by reading or at least telling a story from this book. And this is what a 5-year-old child sounds like.
1, 2, 3.
I hope you could hear that. So 1, 2, 3, loud and clear. There's a hum in the background, yeah, and that's the typical hum you'd pick up with a microphone in a primary school. Now here's was someone raising a hand? I don't have a clear view of anyone saying anything. Okay, sound is coming through. Brilliant. Now, spontaneous speech. I'm going to let you hear some samples of a child just speaking.
A boy looking at the frog.
Loud and clear. The boy looking at the frog. What about this one?
And he's going a grasshopper on top of it.
I bet you didn't get it, yeah? And he saw a grasshopper on top of it. And here's another one.
And a rat popped out of the hole.
And a rat popped out of the hole. Now, what's interesting about the last one is this fluency. The boy starts talking and hesitates and suddenly uses another word, and that confuses speech recognition. Back in the day, it really wasn't good. And so the best speech recognition out there was the one by Google, but at best we could understand about, or at least transcribe, about 12% of the utterances spoken by the children, meaning that 9 out of 10 times that a child was saying something, the robot didn't have a clue and we couldn't respond in the right way. Now, things have changed since 2017. Yeah? In 2023, OpenAI released Whisper, a model trained on an insane amount of speech. I find it still fascinating that it works so well, especially that actually speech is converted into an image, and it's this image that is given to a transformer to describe that image, and it describes it in text. And it's absolutely fascinating that this works. And I'm going to play you a recording from 2017, but now transcribed by Whisper. Now, I bet if you would close your eyes that you would understand most of what is being said, but Whisper transcribes this as follows.
The dog is looking and the lions and cat is watching. The dog is looking and the dog and the cat is watching. The frog is getting out of the jar when the cat and the dog is asleep.
Now, this is amazing. Yeah? You hear this quiet voice. You hear the whir in the background of the fan cooling the robot. You hear other kids screaming. And look at that transcription. Yeah? It is near perfect. So we've come a long way, and suddenly we can build robots that actually can transcribe speech and then act upon spoken language. So how does this compare? You know, what has changed? Well, the blue bars are speech recognition performance in 2017. And the smaller the bar is, the better. The best one then was Google speech recognition. It recognized roughly with a bit of, I don't know, massaging, it recognized about 20% of utterances. They didn't improve at all in 7 years' time. Google didn't invest in speech recognition. But look at Whisper. Whisper by OpenAI, the best one out there, totally unbeaten still by now, and it recognizes about 60% of sentences. So it's not perfect. It's not really not perfect by far, but 60% we can work with that. I'll explain later how. The other thing we learned was that actually you want to use locally hosted models. So Whisper allows that. You can download it. It's not quite open source, but you can kind of, the software that you can use for free. You can host it on your own GPU machine. And what you get is really fast performance. You not only get good performance, but you get performance where you have a real-time factor of about 0.3. So meaning that for 1 minute of speech, you need about, say, under 20 seconds of processing. And that's great because it means that this really allows for real-time interaction. Another thing we learned is that it's worth using an external microphone. So don't rely on the microphone built in your robot. It doesn't matter what robot you're using. Is it a pepper and now a fur hat? Yeah. Take the microphone out of it and place it in front of the robot. So it's not muffled by the plastic of the robot, or you don't pick up any artifacts of the motors of the robot. Yeah, so kind of an external microphone really works very well. Now, what we also find is that, of course, speech recognition is language dependent. Now, the third one there is English. And you see, the English performance is the best. Yeah? So you get the lowest error rates, no matter what kind of model you're using of Whisper. But you don't want to be speaking Estonian or Lithuanian. And it really shows that for different languages, you can expect to get really different performance. Even within a language, and if you speak a different accent or a different regional accent, expect to get worse performance the lower or the smaller your language group is. So American English works really well, followed by clean British English. Try and speak another dialect and performance really goes down. So there was English, Spanish, just highlighting a few things, French, for example. Dutch, the language that we need in most of our research. Still acceptable, but smaller languages, you'll get really bad performance. Realistically, if you're speaking one of the major European languages, you can expect to get about 70% of the words transcribed correctly. Right, now let's move to the other side before we talk about what happens in between, and let's talk about understanding a robot. When our robots are speaking, have you ever noticed that they always seem to use the same voice? Now, we don't do that. We humans, we change our voice depending on the circumstances. For example, if we're in a loud bar, we will not only talk louder, we will put more energy into our vocal effort. We'll increase our vocal effort to be better understood by the people we're talking to. This is called the Lombard effect. And somehow, robots and digital devices don't do it. At best, they will only talk louder. And that's not really ideal, is it? Think about it. Your car, if it would be talking to you, but you're on a loud stretch of road with, I don't know, the wind rushing, it doesn't change its voice to be better understood. It doesn't seem to realize that you're in a loud environment. And the same thing for digital assistants, robots, they don't adapt their voices. So to what should a robot really adapt? Well, first of all, the noise around it. If you're in a loud bar or a quiet room, it should adapt. Distance. So if you're really close by, if I'm just whispering in your ear, or if I'm close to your ear, I should whisper instead of shout, of course. Hearing difficulties. If you realize that people are having hearing difficulties because, for whatever reason, they might be elderly people or they might be wearing ear mufflers or something, you're going to speak differently. The language level, if you know that people are not speaking your language, you're going to kind of put more effort into your speech. And then finally, the acoustic quality of a room. At the moment, I find myself in an abbey and here is ridiculously echoey. And I just, almost unconsciously I'm going to adapt my speech to be better understood. Now, we collected data to actually have enough data to train a model that would adapt its speech. And the way we did this was collecting data in many different rooms. We went from anechoic chambers, so chambers that are entirely quiet, where there's no echo, all the way to kind of large spaces where the sound just bounces around the room. And you can kind of understand that by taking the time it takes before an echo dies down. So you can just have a robot make a loud ping sound and listen to how long it takes before that echo is attenuated. And that gives you an idea of how echoey a room is. Now, we collected data by letting people listen to a robot speaking short words, monosyllabic words like hash, dodge, should, which, and people had to type out what they thought that the robot said. We collected tons of data at different distances, the robot sitting at different angles, the robot sitting in different rooms, but also environmental sounds, sounds around the robot interfering with its speech, being of different volumes and different qualities. Sometimes you'd have birds whistling, but all the way to kind of a chainsaw cutting through a log, and that we would be playing that as you're kind of listening to the robot. Now, there's some really nifty things going on. For example, we have a CNN that tries to understand how annoying the background noise is to understand the robot. And so it takes a spectrogram from that noise and then gives us just a number saying, like, this is how annoying this sound is to actually understand someone. And to generate the new voice of the robot, we used a simple neural network. Those exist as well. They still exist, where we just putting some numbers on how echoey a room is, how annoying the sound is, what the speech level is, or the interactant, if there's hearing difficulties, etc. And it changes the voice of the robot. So let's hear a demonstration. So you're going to hear a robot speak the following words: choose, with, more, and so on, using a default voice. The voice you're hearing is the voice from a now robot. So let's listen.
Choose. With. More. Which. Miss. Wire. Lose. Wife. Love.
That's okay, isn't it? And we're going to add background noise, really annoying background noise. See if you can still understand that same voice.
Choose.
That was annoying, wasn't it? So it's really difficult to understand a default voice in those circumstances. But what about our adaptive voice? Now the robot is aware of what is going on and changes its voice to be better understood. Let's listen.
Choose. Whip. More. Which. Miss. Wire. Lose.
And indeed, I hope you agree with me that this voice is actually so much easier to understand. So we've got kind of the input and the output. Now we want the robot to actually do something useful. And I'm going to give you an example of the robots that we use in care homes as companions. And why do we do that? Well, we're trying to build robots that can address social isolation. Feeling lonely is taking on epidemic proportions. Yes, many people feel lonely, especially elderly people. There's some data from the UK where Age UK kind of has a really good picture on how bad this is. And in the UK, 1 million people go an entire month without speaking to anyone. Now, this isn't only sad, but it really is a problem. Yeah, social isolation is associated with numerous health risks, dementia, risk of a stroke. And the following statement really drives it home for me. In the US surgeon wrote in a 2023 report that feeling lonely is as damaging to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So we bring robots to care homes. And this is what it looks like. Yeah, we take a Pepper robot. This is Nicole, one of our residents there. She speaks French in a care home where no one else speaks French, so she loves talking to the robot. And to kind of illustrate how much she loves doing that, when over the summer I entered her room, I saw this picture on her shelves. Yeah? On the right, you see her late husband and firstborn child, and next to it, you see a picture of her with the robot. That's how much the robot actually means to her. Yeah? Um, Now, you know that this is hard work. Doing that kind of research really means like, putting the robot in the car, driving over to a care home, installing it, technical problems, Wi-Fi. There is Wi-Fi in a care home, which is great, but thick walls, sometimes the signal drops. But we're trying to collect data on how well the robot actually works and how meaningful that robot is for elderly people. Now, of course, you guessed it. Behind it, yeah, the magic driving this whole interaction is a large language model. And what we want is open domain dialogue capabilities. We get that from the large language model. We want to store state. So we want to take salient elements from a conversation and reuse it when we next meet our interactant, our elderly resident. And we want to cover for poor performing speech recognition. In addition, we want the robot to have a personality. It needs to have a particular personality, and we focus on that robot, on the robot being empathetic. And this is kind of a condensed version of the prompt that we would typically give to the robot. So you really kind of focus hard on the character that it needs to have. We load in things like, you're talking to a certain person, that's the name of the person. Really important is the thing between hashes there. That's a summary of the last conversation, the date and time, the location, the language in which they're talking. And that actually already creates a really strong baseline to have a conversation in. Now, let me just show you a really brief video clip. I'm sorry if this is a Zoom connection, so the video is going to be a bit laggy, but you'll get the idea.
Wauw, het is een lange tijd om te voetballen. Hij moet vast veel mooie momenten hebben beleefd op het veld.
Ja, dat is waar.
Kun je vaak kijken naar zijn wedstrijden?
Ja.
Wat was het meest memorabele moment dat je je herinnert van zijn tijd als keeper?
Als keeper, als we kampioen waren, dat was de schoonste tijd dat ik mee mocht.
Okay. So, conversation about her son who used to play football, and she's, I don't know, involved in the football team, cooking food, etc. Now, here's a graph that I think is kind of really meaningful. So, we're having a 10-week study with 5 residents. Unfortunately, one of our residents passed away midway our study. Yeah, so that's the orange front line you're seeing there. At first, the first week, the conversations are kind of, superficial, stilted, just less than 10 minutes on average. But you see that pick up week after week. Those conversations get longer and longer, and up to 45 minutes. Many times even kind of they end due to a technical error. Yeah, the system is not perfect. We lose a connection, something goes wrong. But it's really interesting to see how long these people keep talking to the robot. Yeah, they don't have to, they can stop anytime, but they keep going. Another really interesting measure is the levels of emotional awareness scale. So this is a metric that tells you how deep the conversation is. 2, 3 is like fairly superficial. It's, talking about the weather, talking about, I don't know, I don't feel well, but not kind of going into detail, while 5 is very, very deep. It's talking about bereavement, really deep concerns. And you kind of see that LEAS kind of creep up week after week, showing that the robot really kind of manages to engage in conversations that are personal and very meaningful to residents. We can't measure if it actually has an impact on social isolation, but I think that these measures, the LEAS and others that we have, actually are a very good proxy to tell us something about social isolation. Now, technically, there's tons of problems that we're dealing with. One, for example, is turn taking. Turn taking, yeah, I love this graph by Gabriel Scanza from KTH, where he shows how fast we are in actually taking turns during a conversation. Yeah? And what you can see is that a large part of the start of our turn actually happens before someone else has already stopped speaking. Yeah? So we're so fast at taking turns. And the cues that we use are, silences, the semantic content of the speech, prosody, eye gaze, gestures. There's so much going on that we kind of pull together to understand when it's our turn to take over. But in robots, this doesn't work. Right. This is a video from the same group in Stockholm, where you see a lady talking about how she makes broccoli soup, and the robot doesn't quite get the turn taking right.
What about you? Yes, I like broccoli too. I use broccoli very often for a soup. And I like. Yes. And I like to. Broccoli is a great vegetable to use in cooking. Yes. I like sharing that with me. I like to cook it in steam.
Really, turn taking not working at all there. Great research by Bar, Irfan and colleagues. And she shows that if you just kind of approach turn taking in a naive way, and the most naive way of doing that is using silences. So listening for using voice activity detection to listen for a silence in the speech, you're going to get slow responses or interruptions. It just doesn't work. And the way around that we used, and also the group in KTH has come up with, is by letting a large language model decide on when it's the right time to take a turn, right, or to relinquish the floor. And the way you can do that is by looking at the semantics of what is being said. So this is the prompt we give. It's a fairly large prompt, but it works really fast because we ask the LLM to respond with a single 1 or 0 to tell us if the turn is relinquished or not, right? So that's a really fast single token response you get in response to an utterance that has been transcribed. And we get really nice turn taking out of that. So together with voice activity detection and this large language model telling us what semantic content is, and if it's now is the moment is to change turns, it tends to work. As you also probably noticed in that video, that was a really nice kind of to and fro between the robot and this lady. Now, other problems that we face is that speech recognition fails often. Speech recognition for elderly people is already a challenge. The challenge that we face is that we have a language, or that we're dealing with languages that are kind of low, fairly low resource, but also that the people that we work with speak a local dialect. So, for example, one lady in our sample speaks French, and she speaks a very clean French, and almost everything is correctly transcribed by the robot. But then we've got the other 5, and the other 4, and they speak a local dialect, and only about half of what they say is correctly transcribed, meaning that actually you would expect the robot to not do well. But if we ask people what they make of the robot, they always say that the robot is doing okay, and they report that the robot seems to understand them better than what we would think from the performance of the speech recognition. So what is going on there? Well, it's again the large language model that comes to the rescue. The LLM has enough context, has enough prior interactions that we've summarized, or from the current ongoing interaction, to actually get the gist of what is being said. And it still says something that actually makes sense. And so even though the speech recognition isn't doing well, the conversation is flowing. Sometimes with, I don't know, sometimes it's a bit awkward, but people don't seem to mind. That's really interesting. People are incredibly forgiving when it comes to conversations. And I think we all do that. So the next time you're in a bar and you kind of observe a conversation going on, notice how forgiving we are, how we kind of fill in the gaps, and etc. And that's exactly what LLMs are doing. Another thing that we noticed was that our residents were adapting their speech to be better understood by the robot. So when they started out, you get a fairly high word error rate, certainly for the local dialect, but that goes down over the weeks. And it really means that they have kind of somehow unconsciously learned to adapt their speech, their rate of speech, the words that they use, to be better understood by the robot. Now, of course, what you probably didn't notice was that the robot was blind in our case. We just used a large language model. And what we would like to have is a robot that really understands what is going on, a robot that not only understands language, but also understands the visual environment. And here's a short video of what we can achieve if we add a vision language model into a robot. So this is a robot placed in a home, and we kind of, I don't know, just act out random scenario, not random scenarios, some scenarios, and see how the robot responds. Let's have a look.
Hi there. I see you're wearing a yellow jacket and a hood. It looks like it's perfect for rainy weather. What are you up to today?
Hey, do you know how to use this?
Are you trying to make some coffee with that machine? It looks like a coffee maker. Do you need help figuring out how to use it?
Yes, I would love that, please.
Great! To start, you'll want to fill the water tank in the back of the machine, if it's not already filled. Then, pick a coffee pod that you like and put it in the slot at the top. Next, close the top down so it can pierce the pod. Put your cup under the spout and press the button to start brewing your coffee. It'll take a minute or so.
It's raining outside. Which one is better?
Oh, I can't actually see the weather, but for a rainy day, the jacket on your right looks thicker and might have a hood, which could be great to keep you dry. The other one looks comfy too, but maybe it's better for staying cozy inside.
Nice weather in Belgium, huh?
So what I really like about that video,
It looks pretty rainy. Raindrops are all over the window. Do you like the rain, or would you rather have it sunny?
is that the robot actually understands the gestures. So when Maria is pointing at the coffee maker, can you help with this? It understands that the gesture, knows that she wants information about the coffee maker. Or when Chow Chow is holding up two items of clothing, the robot does perspective reversal and goes like the item on your left, which is unbelievable that this actually comes out of a VLM. Now, VLMs extend the capabilities of robots, but we're not there yet. Yeah, they're not optimized or trained for egocentric embodied social interaction, and so we really kind of need to twist the VLM's arm to understand that it's kind of embodied in a robot, that it's looking through the cameras sitting in the robot, and that it needs to respond in that way. But we're getting there. Really exciting times. Just checking the time. One of the things we also want to have a look at is robots that actually do the right thing. Yeah? So, and one part of the research is looking at robots that understand the values that people have. Values are these things that actually govern everything that we do from kind of, I don't know, the moment we start, we wake up, we values this influence what we do. Yeah, when we put the bins out, how far we stand from someone, how loud we speak, yeah, all governed by values. And we want the robots to actually understand human values as well, but also balance its own task with our values. And we thought for a long time, how are we going to demonstrate that? And we settled on a vacuum cleaning robot. We kind of pimped this robot with a LiDAR and a camera, and tried to build a value-aware vacuum cleaner. Yeah? For that, we wanted to use reasoning as on asked to do this, and it uses a camera which is the decision on what to do. In our case, really simple decision. You're going to charge, you're going to don't do anything and observe, or you're going to start cleaning. And let's have a look at a video.
After all these years, I realized that despite all that, I still loved him. Well, you are Hold shameless. Your horses and listen to me. You wanted to know the truth. Now listen. You want the truth, now you're getting the whole truth. When I saw Arturo again, everything came rushing back, and no matter how hard I tried to deny it, I couldn't resist. I really could not. We had a history that never really had a closure. So, when we saw each other in Puerto Vallarta, we kissed.
Physical AI will require more and more nuanced, embodied reasoning capabilities. In this work, we'll explore the use of multimodal large language models for real-time situated reasoning.
I'm going to cut it short here, but what I really, really love about this is that you've got a VLM looking through the camera mounted on the robot about 20 centimeters off the floor. So it has a very limited view of what is going on. It literally just sees legs sticking out of the sofa at the bottom of the TV screen on which a movie is playing. And that is enough for the VLM to realize that someone is watching television. And then with the right prompting to realize that it's embodied in a robot, a vacuum cleaning robot, and that vacuum cleaning is disturbing. It makes a noise that would actually be disruptive when you're watching a film. And we've tried in many different situations. We threw pets into the mix, looked at how it responds to pets. It does it always, almost always perfectly. Even problems like we had a little dog and it left a little something in the house we were testing. The robot responded in the right way. It just sat tight and decided not to start cleaning until a human came by to actually assist. And so it's unbelievable how this context awareness, this common sense reasoning that you have in LLMs and VLMs actually changes the way we do things. So some final thoughts. We've seen decades of progress really in just a few years. Only a few years back, we had robots that really could do anything. We had to wizard things. We had to kind of narrow the interaction to be, just stay within one narrow path, so we could script behaviors of the robot, and that is dropping away. I'm sure you've heard of Moravec's paradox. Yeah, anything easy for us is hard for robots or computers, and the other way around. Well, we're breaking through that. After almost 50 years, we've got machines that actually do things that we find easy as well, that understand language, that make really hard decisions, that understand values. And so these are incredibly exciting times. And it puzzles me that across the world, we're building humanoid robots now, and somehow we're forgetting the human dimension. Yeah, if you look at most of these robots, actually almost all of them, without exception, they don't have a face. They're not built to have a social interaction. Why is that? They're only focusing on the physical abilities of these robots and not on the social abilities. And I think that's a missed opportunity because humans are not a toy problem. People working on physical robotics, they often think that interacting with people is easy. People are just obstacles that you kind of drive around or move around. They're not. Building functional, multimodal social interaction is really hard. And the moment you do it, it kind of never ceases to amaze me how special we as people are. You know, what amazing creatures we are, and the only animal species that can have this rich, you know, language-filled interaction with each other. And I'd like to end on that thought. But not before thanking the people who do all the hard work in my lab, who you see right here, and thanking you for your attention. And with that, I'd like to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Tony, for a fascinating talk. I would love to get my hands on one of those context-aware robot vacuum cleaners. Yes, we've got some time for some questions, and we've already got a few questions that have come through on the Zoom Q&A feature to get us started. For everyone else, if you'd like to ask a question out loud, you can raise your hand by clicking the reactions button, or you can submit questions using the Q&A feature in Zoom, which is the icon with the little question mark in it. And if you're watching on YouTube, please type your questions into the live chat. Fantastic. So I will read out a couple of the first questions we had come through on the Q&A. So Sergio says, how do you manage episodical memory on long-term interactions?
It's a fascinating question, Sergio. So episodical memory, kind of remembering what happened when, and storing that and retrieving that for later use. Really important skill. The way we tackle it is by letting an LLM summarize what happens. So, for example, you might be talking with the robot for half an hour, and then we'll just ask the LLM to summarize what this conversation was about. LLMs are amazing at just picking out the salient elements. So, for example, I would talk to the robot just right before Christmas, which this is a real story. I'm talking to a robot right before Christmas, and I tell the robot I'm going to go Christmas shopping later, and I still don't know what to buy for the kids. I meet the robot after Christmas. The robot loads that summary of the conversation back in and goes, so did you buy anything nice for your kids? The moment that happens, even though I know what's going on behind the screen, but I felt something special was happening, and this is episodical memory. It doesn't do well with time, So things like we at the moment we don't store when something was said, like dates or something, but that would entirely be possible. Kind of have timestamps with memories as well. And it's not necessary to store everything. We found that it's okay, certainly for social conversations, it's okay to forget about things. It's maybe not what we would want robots to do in other situations, but in social conversations, absolutely fine to forget stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's what humans do all of the time. So fantastic, thank you. So we have a question from Ruben who says, would your predictive turn-taking approach work in a group setting, including one robot and multiple humans?
It does. So the trick that we used, so we've tried this, and we had two technical tricks up our sleeve. One was a directional microphone. So that does the uses kind of the time of arrival of sound to know who's talking. Then three tricks. Then we're trying to look through the video camera at whose mouth is moving. So we also kind of correlate that with the time of arrival on that microphone. And we do diarization as well. So we use a speech recognition engine. And that one was the one by Azure, Microsoft. that can do diarization. So it actually understands when two different voices are speaking and is going to mark them with, hey, speaker one, speaker two. And you can do predictive turn taking in that sense. It is harder though, because, for example, the context that we were working in was a triad, and understanding when someone is talking to you or talking to someone else is a skill that we are incredibly good at. Robots are not. Yeah, it works to some extent, but it is a much bigger challenge than just a dyad. Turn taking in a triad, it's not as bad as it not working at all, but it's not perfect. Yeah. But the trick was really understanding that you've got two different people and then listening to what is being said and trying to understand which way they're facing to know if they're addressing you or not. We've got a paper coming out on that soon, I hope.
Fantastic, thank you. So we had an anonymous question on the Q&A, which says, at the end of the video, the woman says, nice weather in Belgium, huh? Which I argue might be a bit of a joke or sarcasm. Can some LLMs detect sarcasm and humor?
They can. They really can. I'm always amazed at how good they are at picking things like that up. Do they have a great sense of humor? No. But sarcasm, they do that really well. So no problem there.
Amazing. I mean, that's really impressive, because to understand sarcasm, you need all of that context, you know, to know that what the person is saying isn't.
Absolutely, you need to know that Belgium isn't a funny place. Yeah, it is actually seen through the camera. It's seeing the raindrops on the window, and it uses that context to say, yeah, it could give a snarky comment on on what it's seeing, and yeah, it's absolutely lovely. And this, by the way, everything that you see in that video is it is. It's not scripted or anything. And these were genuine interactions that we just edited together in one video.
Amazing. So Patrick sent in a question. Patrick says, thank you for the amazing talk. It was great seeing you emphasize the importance of social aspects of robotics. I agree that wherever people face robots, human-robot interaction is important to consider. Do you think that the public is sufficiently aware of the importance of HRI, or do you have experience having to fight for this to be recognised more?
Oh, God. Great question. I'd love to hear what your experience is, but I think that everyone here in the room has kind of met skepticism. Yeah, everyone can kind of, you know, when you talk to people, like, everyone understands that a robot that would do something useful in the house, like, I don't know, do the dishes, fill the dishwasher, make the beds or something, everyone can understand that. But trying to explain to people that actually the social aspect is equally important. Yeah? People don't quite get that. And I think it is because it comes so effortless to us. Being social is something that we do so often, and it comes so easy to most of us that we don't realize how important it is, how it drives everything that we do. And it's not even, people don't even need to be in the room. Yeah? Just the way you behave in I don't know, in someone's house, the way you behave at work, you know, what you do, when the state you leave the toilet in, everything that you do. Yeah? Goes back to the fact that you're a social being, and robots need to be social beings too. And it's indeed, it's a struggle to convince people that this is worth, you know, putting time and money in. Yeah,
that's a shame. Hopefully this will improve as people see the fruits of all the HRI researchers' labours. We've got quite a few more questions in the Q&A and only quite a limited amount of time. I think there's an interesting question here. I'm afraid I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Anag says, when we're designing social robots, how do we address the privacy of the users they interact with, and to decide when they want the robot to interact and when they don't?
That's a really good question. We haven't got a clear answer on that one. Yeah. So there's so many issues. Privacy is a really big one. Um, some of the straightforward things that we're doing is we relied a lot on OpenAI's models in recent years, but I feel a bit uncomfortable about that, yeah, because we are sending data over the internet in the EU. We know it's going to be processed in the EU, somewhere in Germany. But still, hey, you're sending data to a large faceless corporation. We don't want to do that. So we've been looking at running local models. For example, Gemma 3 by Google as a VLM. We've been using that one. It runs fairly decently on a single machine that we can place close to the robot. So we guarantee privacy there. But I sense that you're also talking about that there's a robot, for example, living with you, and it's basically always on, isn't it? It has microphones and cameras, and it actually can record what is happening in your life. And how do you deal with that? Um, I don't know yet. I really don't. People have taken simple solutions like, if the recording light is on, it means that the robot can hear and see you. And if it's off, we guarantee that it isn't picking anything up. Speaking a wake word that is processed locally, and only then does the robot start sending data to servers remotely. Solutions like that, but at the moment we haven't got a kind of an agreed upon solution on how to deal with privacy. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done there. Still a really exciting field, and how we as users or as a society are going to deal with privacy matters. It's an open question.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been quite surprised by how willing people are to have even the technology we have now, in terms of like these AI assistants that are listening, or, video cameras, doorbells. People seem to just accept them into their homes.
Oh yes,
they make me really
absolutely.
uneasy.
And of course, we are going to change as well. Yeah, don't think that 2026 Claire is going to be the same as 2036 Claire. You're going to change your attitudes to these systems, and perhaps we're all going to be very accepting of robots being on all the time. We don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I'm really sad to say that is all the time we have for today's seminar. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to you, Professor Belpaeme, for your fascinating insights into AI and social robotics. And thank you to the wonderful audience on Zoom and YouTube for contributing to a really interesting discussion. So this was the first series of seminars organised by the UK-HRI topic group on human-robot interaction research. Our next seminar is on the 18th of February, where Professor Kirsten Dortenhan from the University of Waterloo will be talking about social robots in therapy, education and well-being. To register for that webinar, you can use the QR code on screen now, or I will pop a registration link into the chat in a moment. You can also find out more details about all our upcoming seminars on the UK-HRI website. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today, and I hope to see you again at our next seminar in February. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire and Tony. Bye.
Bye.